What's the fastest you've ever gone from caring about someone to straight up loathing them? I'm so late, but I have a story that isn't, if the cheating variety, and made me lose any respect for 3 people at once. Late high school years. A friend in our group had invited everyone to hang out at his parents' house. We were supposed to agree on a time the day of, but people weren't answering my calls or messages, or were really vague. It was almost 7 PM, which was a couple of hours later than I'd figured, so I decided to drive over. Send one guy a message saying no one's really answering, so I'll just go ring the friend's doorbell. So all of a sudden, the friend calls me and says he was caught up in something and the whole thing might be off. He'll let me know. Thing is, he called me when I was just parking in front of his house and had a clear view of almost everyone in my group in his house. I let the call go on for several minutes, watching him motion people to be quiet, doing the talking hand yada yada gesture etc. without letting him know I was watching him, until the dude finally spotted my car. He then, very obviously, told everyone to hide because he thought I'd just pulled up, and one guy who also pretended to be my friend actually hit the ground together with his girlfriend to avoid being seen from the window. So those 3 people, 2 friends and the GF of 1, I have absolutely zero respect for. Also, I have nothing to do with any of them anymore, so that's nice. Then again, I also very clearly saw one real friend tell the friend off. He also called me immediately and said to wait up. He'd rather hang out with me than those holes. 20 years later we are still very close and effectively formed a new group of friends. So big silver lining. I worked for my stepmom with the intent that I would take over the business when she retired in a few years. I took more than a 50% pay cut and left my career of 10 years of managing and leading organizations to come work for her. Those few years came and went with her unable to even talk about a timeline for retirement. I spent years trying to fix processes and procedures around the office to make her life easier and to make the general workflow easier for all employees, but she was completely resistant to any change from the status quo, while simultaneously always complaining about how busy she was and how we just didn't have any good processes in place. I finally confronted her about her retirement timeline and putting it in writing that I would be her succession plan. She balked at even putting together a plan for her retirement. I let her know that I really couldn't hang around if there weren't any prospects for advancement or pay increases. My wife secured a job in a new town and I gave my stepmom a 6-month notice that we would be moving. I explained that I would be more than willing to help hire and train my replacement and finish formalizing all of the procedures I had developed in my time there. She fired me the next business day. Fuck that bitch. My, at the time, girlfriend had a little sister. She was graduating from college, and her college was not close by. It was a few states away, and at least a 5-hour drive. We both loved the sister, but we weren't going to make it to her graduation. We couldn't afford a hotel for the weekend, and we couldn't take off from work to get there on time. She freaked out on us. It was the biggest tantrum I've seen an adult make. My GF and I both assumed it wasn't that big of a deal. But seeing how much her sister freaked out, we reevaluated the situation. So, we packed up quickly and drove through the night to get there. She told us we could sleep in her apartment that night, but that we'd need to get a hotel the following night. That was fine. We found something online for like $100 a night. We got to her place in record time. It was not even midnight. We felt like heroes for making up so quickly. We get to her apartment, and she won't let us in. She says she's already in bed, and we should have gotten there earlier if we wanted to take her up on her offer. So, we are both exhausted, and we have nowhere to stay. I wanted to just turn around and go back home, but my GF was a better person than me. Luckily we had other friends in the city, and one was nice enough to give us their couches for the night. It's been like 15 years, and I assume the sister was getting one last lay with a college hookup, because I could not imagine any other scenario where she couldn't simply walk down 2 flights of stairs to open the door for us. I ended up marrying the GF, and still bring up this situation anytime she gets in a fight with her sister. It's usually I can't believe how selfish my sister is being, and I go you can't. Remember that time we drove to her college grab and she cuts me off? Of course she also remembers it. Coworker had a dog who she let run free on her property. Said dog liked to chase cars. so it was only a matter of time, and the dog was it. Dog couldn't walk for 2 days, was dragging herself around for days after that. We told her to bring her to the vet, and she refused, because it was too expensive. We pulled together the money and told her, bring your damn dog to the vet. And she did. The dog's bones in her legs and pelvis were shattered, and the dog had no chance of recovering. Coworker finally let the poor thing die peacefully. So anyhow, it was $50 to put this dog to sleep. And since then, every time my coworker spends money on something frivolous and shows us novelty socks, collectibles, an expensive cake, another fucking pet, I think about how she decided bringing comfort to a dying animal wasn't worth paying for. Was at my wife's family Christmas gift exchange. My wife is estranged from her direct family, so this was all of the uncles, aunties, and cousins. There were multiple nieces and nephews running around having a good time. We all agreed to a white elephant exchange for the adults, so we didn't have to buy a lot of gifts. We did that the night before, and did the gifts for the kids in their morning. Morning rolls around and all the kids are opening gifts, except my son. None of those entitled asshats got him anything. He sat there and watched everyone else open multiple gifts, and it broke my heart to see him sitting there with nothing. Fuck those people right up their stupider holes. Had made some plans with a G/F at the time for Valentine's Day. This was back in late HS. Had called her on the phone a few hours before to reconfirm details, and she abruptly begged off cause supposedly her parents were going to be having a date of their own later that evening, and so she was being assigned to take care of her grandma for the day. Her grandmother needed constant care, so it wasn't especially unusual for one of her parents to be taking a day to stay with her. She was supposed to leave pretty early in the afternoon and be with her all evening. So I decided that the least I could do was maybe drop off some flowers and chocolates in basket and stuff, so she'd have something nice waiting when she got back. Spent a bunch of money on getting something nice, showed up at her place around 5, expecting just her parents to be there, and not only was she the one to answer the door, I could clearly hear both her parents chatting away in the background and there was no grandmother to be seen. Turned out, she just didn't have the guts to bite the bullet and properly break up with me. She was just going to keep cancelling until I got the picture or something. In a split second, my husband, at the time, and I were physically separated. I was pregnant with our second child, and I was under the impression we were working things out to ultimately get our family back together in the same household. That whole part is a long story. Needless to say, my ex-husband did not come to the birth of our son, and his mother had to tell him when I went into labor and had the child. When he finally called me, hours upon hours later, he asked me what I named our son. When he found out I did not name him a Junior, but instead gave him his own name that didn't have any relation to my ex-husband or his family, well, he told me it was a gay-ass Christian name for someone not even a Christian, then hung up on me and refused to answer for days. On top of the total disrespect and display of selfish pouting, a family member finally disclosed to me after my son was born that he, my ex-husband, spent the entire year milking me for money to finance an affair that resulted in him moving in with a chick, getting her name tattooed on his arm, and using my money to pay for groceries and other household essentials. After all that, I was done. I called him out on his affair, which shocked him and resulted in him freaking out and stalking me for weeks to find out who told me. I filed for divorce while on maternity leave and cut his ass all the way off. Of course he tried arguing that by not helping him, I was hurting my kid's cause. You know, according to him, how was he supposed to help his kids if I didn't first help him with money, his car payment, insurance, etc. Ugh. Such a low-life bum. And in one split second, I despised everything he was, would be and had been. I wish him ill will in the truest form of karma. I don't feel sorry for him, and I have zero concern for his life. I had a friend a while back. Neat guy. Liked video games, anime. One of the few people willing to go in on a pen and paper RPG. Didn't interact with him outside of these sorts of events. One time, a bunch of us went to grab dinner before seeing a limited run anime movie. This guy special orders absolutely everything. Won't pick something on the menu. Standard grill fare. Doesn't just ask for special order, demands it. calls the waitress names, and is just a total dick. When I confronted him about it, he started shouting and making a huge scene in the restaurant. The rest of the night was massively awkward. After that, I just ghosted him. People who treat others poorly like that have no place in my life. You can tell the character of a person based on how they treat someone. They don't have to be kind or nice to